Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Daring Grace podcast, and happy 2026. We're so excited to start this year with you and to start with a conversation we've had before, but maybe need to continue to evolve the definition of what is daring grace. And so we're grateful that you are a part of this, grateful that you have been along with us in this journey. And if this is the first time you're listening, thanks so much for being with us. My name is Brittany Bethel. I'm the executive director of Cross Connection. And today, actually, Juanfer Rodriguez is going to interview me about how we got started. So really grateful for you being a part of it and for listening and sharing this episode and telling more people about it. It helps get the word out about what we're talking about, but it also helps get the word out about Cross Connection, which is something we really love and have really poured our lives into. And so the more people that know about it, the better. So welcome to this conversation. Juanfer, you're going to introduce yourself and what you do for Cross Connection, and then we'll get started.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Juanfer Rodriguez, and I am the Director of Engagement at Cross Connection. So a lot of what I have to do here is related to volunteers, related to staff, right, during the summer, is also related to some content creation and a few other things, but that's mainly it. It is nice to be, talking with my boss here.
Friend, I hope. But yes, boss
Yeah.
as well, I guess. Yeah.
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 Well, so I'll be making the questions, right?
Yep. Yeah. There's a different angle for me, so we'll give it a
Yeah,
shot here. Yeah.
it'll be fun. Um, we usually have a lot of
We
conversations
do.
out of the office, so I think we'll enjoy it. But I just wanted to, like you said, like revisit what Darren Grace is and kind of like know where you came from when you started the Darren Grace podcast and like what were you envisioning when you started it, right? So what compelled you into starting Darren Grace in the first place?
Yeah, it was 2024. The General Conference of the United Methodist Church was about to start, and Laura Brown, who was on staff at the time, and Taylor Whitley, who is my wife, but also had just left staff. I realized that we hadn't documented the conversations we had been having in the office and what led us to some of the decisions that we had made about Cross Connection. And I want this to be a community ministry. I want this to be something that everyone feels like they know what's going on and has a part and a say in. And I realized that we had left a lot of people out of the conversation. And so it was a way for us in the beginning to share the story, to make sure that from 2021, really from 2019 to now, was documented in a conversation that we could kind of look back on where we had come from, recognizing that the church, the United Methodist Church, was about to decide if Taylor and I could be not only welcome in the church, but active participants of the church in fully, right? And so we knew that conversation was coming. We had already made those decisions for Cross Connection to be that place for people. And I just wanted, to bring people along and to share the story. I think the main hope then was to give another platform for people who feel disconnected from this ministry to feel connected. It was another platform for the 35,000 campers we've had over the last 38 years and the 600 plus staff people we've had, the past board members, the past people that if they're not directly in the day-to-day of it, they would be able to hear conversations about where we are and where we're going. And then also just a platform to talk about this idea of how do we do this Jesus thing and this advocacy and this, just being, in my opinion, being more like Jesus. How do we do that in a world that is constantly telling a lot of people they don't belong? And how do we have those conversations in this office to be able to create meaningful ministry, but also just to create meaningful relationships? And so that's really where it all came from.
Yeah. Can you, and I'm going to go a little bit off script here, but can you give us a context of how the United Methodist Church was working back then? And like,
Sure.
what are some of the things that were not completely good about what the church, how the church was working?
I would say the church has is and will always have things that marginalize people, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. I think the church, Big C Church, United Methodist Church, every church will have something that they are hung up on. And in my lifetime, the thing that people have been hung up on in every church, but particularly the United Methodist Church, was LGBTQ inclusion. We've
Hmm.
been hung up on do not only do we belong. I think queer people have been in churches forever and ever and ever and ever. This is not news or new. But I think what people like Reconciling Ministries Network and countless other people that aren't connected to that network have been doing for a very long time is, hey, there's language in the Book of Discipline, which is like the rule book for the United Methodist Church, that is very pointed, calling out LGBTQ folks and saying that they can't be pastors, saying they can't be married in the church, saying that they can't be fully included in the life of the church. Yes, we have always been welcoming, and I think every church thinks that they are, right? That churches have always said everyone is welcome here. But the definition of welcome, to me anyway, is not only can I be welcome, but can, for me and my gifts, can I sing on stage? Well, not only can I sing on stage, but could I be in charge of the worship ministry? And not
Hmm.
only that, could I be paid staff and be fully out? And
Hmm.
the answer in the United Methodist Church up until 2024 was no. You could not be those things. You could not. I could not get married in the church. I could maybe serve in some churches that were a little more forward thinking, but I could never be on staff without there being a lot of caveats and like, okay, around these people I can say this and around these people I can say that. There were just a lot of things in place and a system in place in everywhere, right? Like it's not just the United Methodist Church, but in everywhere that forced LGBTQ folks to learn how to code switch and navigate different conversations. I do feel like I'm an expert on it. I grew up in Texas. I grew up in the Southern Baptist world. And so I do feel like I got a crash course up until my 30s on how to navigate that world, to be on staff at churches, but to not be fully myself. Right. I feel like I learned how to do that and did that here. I mean, to be really honest, I did that in cross connection world. I thought I was safe when I started working here. And the truth of the matter is, I found out really quickly that I wasn't and had to pivot again and navigate some things again. Um, and so I think, as the United Methodist Church, which is the church that I'm a part of, is the church that Cross Connection was birthed out of. I'm really invested in the conversation of, can everyone be included, not just LGBTQ folks, but brown and black folks, immigrants. It's all these people that we've like marginalized and put on the edges and have asked to really kind of conform to whatever we consider normal. And so I've found myself in places where I've had to advocate for people, right? And to say, well, what about this? And why are we doing this? And why does leadership look like this? And why are we making these decisions?
Yeah.
And so the church was just in that place. And I think the crux of it happened in 2019, where up until then, there was a lot of conversation about, are we or aren't we going to take this language out? Are we or aren't we going to add positive language in? And in 2019, there was a vote in a general conference, a special session of the general conference called to keep the harmful language in. It's like we doubled down,
Yeah.
and that was heartbreaking, right? It was a moment of, oh, not only do I need to continue being able to code switch, but now it looked like at that point there was no hope, right? There was no hope to be able, if I wanted to be a pastor, if Taylor wanted to be a pastor, for us to do that, if we wanted to be able to walk into a church freely as we are without having to worry about things, it looked like that was off the table. Quickly after that, there was the general conference was scheduled for 2020, and there was a huge uproar to say, oh, no, 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 I think we need to have more conversations. And the conversations became around regionalization, which the United Methodist Church is a global church, right? There's churches in Africa and in the Philippines, all over the world, in Europe. And it's like, maybe we need to be more contextual. Maybe the United States doesn't need to be the hub of the United Methodist Church, which it had become to look like that, right?
Hmm.
And maybe we need to recognize that everyone has the same and equal voice. And in some parts of the world, specifically this LGBTQ conversation is deadly. It's not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
It's not just like should we, shouldn't we? It's like people could die, right?
Yeah.
And so that conversation came up, and then COVID happened, and so everything was pushed until 2024, which gave
Okay.
us 4 years, I think, to have conversations, to kind of clarify language, to, if we want to have a silver lining and all of that, it did give people time to leave that were mad. And the people that were mad were the people that wanted the language out. They said, we had this vote. This is over. This conversation is over. Why are we still doing this? Right. And they left. And I think for us as a ministry, goodness, that was heartbreaking because we lost a good bit of our people
Yeah.
in that moment. And so, yeah, the church was just trying to be able to remain united, which is the goal, um, with maybe different viewpoints on this topic, and on other topics, not just this one. And I think, yeah, the church in 2024 decided to remove the language, the harmful language around LGBTQ inclusion. It also kind of doubled down in our social principles, which is like our justice statement, right? To make sure that we're
Yeah.
taking care of not only LGBTQ folks that are marginalized, but Black and Brown folks that are as well. And how do we become a church that is really mindful of our language and of how we treat people? And just because the vote went the way that I was hopeful for, right, it still hurt a lot of people who disagree, and so more people, left. But I think we are now in a season 2026, right, of the church where the questions we're having to ask now, and people at Reconciling Ministries, that is the branch of the United Methodist Church that is trying to help churches become more inclusive and think about their language and all that.
Yeah.
They are saying, okay, we made the vote, but that doesn't mean that everybody understands everything. So now we've got to like kind of move forward and
Yeah.
have more conversations around it. So yeah, I would say for me, right, the vote went, it was more than I could have asked for. It was beautiful and very grateful. But I also recognize a lot of people were still really hurt, um, and we say we serve all people. So that has to be true, you know?
Yeah.
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 It's a
Yeah.
long
I
answer.
remember coming in to the cross connection world around
Mm-hmm.
that time, and I remember having so many questions about
Mm-hmm.
what was going on, right? Because there
Sure.
was so much harm, right, around. Um, and we had, like, I had to talk to churches, I had to talk to like different
Yes.
people in our cross connection community, and I remember you being a huge part of that because you were explaining to me
Mm-hmm.
the whole process, what you have just explained here,
Mm-hmm.
um, and how we needed to be like very careful of how very intentional, I'd say, on how we
Yes.
should approach whatever we were talking about. Um, that had to do with like a lot of people being harmed after this whole process, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's important to like recognize that that harm had been done and that
Yes.
we needed to work not as a not only as cross connection, right? But we needed to work as the church to
Mm-hmm.
invite people in and yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I think the other thing that, I think there are two responses, right? It's one response could be you're either on our team and you got to get out, right? And on our team, meaning like mine and Taylor's team, for example,
hmm,
or just, you know, queer people all around, right? You're either in or you're out, right?
yeah,
And in some ways, in the camping community for us, that's true, right? You at least have to be curious. You have to be open minded. You have to not come in trying to convert us or any student that you interact with or any neighbor that you might interact with. But what I think and I hope that we've done, and I think this is the daring grace side of it for the sake of the title, is I really believe that if people aren't completely fully understanding, as long as they're open to a conversation, open to not cause more harm, right, and not to to think I'm going to hell, or to share that with anyone, or to not condemn me before knowing me, right? I
yeah,
think if people are in a place to say, listen, I don't agree, I don't understand, but I'm willing to be in this space and be respectful, come on, right? Like I'm okay with that. As long as we can be respectful of one another. And the second it turns disrespectful, right, then we've got to separate in the camp community, because we're not going to cause harm to students. That's just not an option. But I do think that I want us to be a place where people who are still on the journey can come and feel included in the conversation and not having to be 100% on board with this or that. I think and even honestly, we say it a lot, but maybe we just say it in closed circles. I don't even need people to be 100% on board with Jesus. I think if we can just come in and be open and respectful, and listen, and we're going to behave like Jesus for the week, right? That's part of camp, is we're behaving like Jesus. We're loving each other. We're eating together. We're serving one another. We're playing together. We're laughing. We're crying. All the things. If people are open to do that, then come on. If whether
Yeah.
you believe in Jesus or not feels really irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I think that the hope is that we can come in and feel welcome and that we can feel belonging. And if you decide to pick up, and the truth that I believe in, that Jesus is worth following, great. And if not, that's the Holy Spirit's job, right?
Yeah.
And if you come in believing that my marriage is holy and God ordained, great, right? And if you don't, cool, right? But I really don't know how that. It's always amazing to me how much that comes up, and I feel like in camp, like I have never asked a heterosexual couple about their marriage one time ever in camp, but my marriage comes up quite often in camp,
Yeah.
and so just like recognizing that like people are curious, and that's what we want, um, and we want to be a place for people to work it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, I think this is an interesting question.
Hmm.
Where or when did grace feel more daring or costly for you?
Yeah. On the last podcast, I hope you'll go listen to Brittany Ingold, because she is awesome, and I think it was a good conversation. But we talked about 2020, and that summer maybe felt the most daring, and where this idea of daring, the word daring, came from is we were reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and it is the book that was the tipping point for me, and that
Mhm.
2020 staff was the tipping point for me to say, I can't hide anymore who I am. I need to be clear, because we had a couple of queer staff that summer that I don't think I did them justice. I didn't stand for them the way I should have. And
Mhm.
so there was a moment for me of like, okay, I've got to put it on the line. And for me, it was the scariest idea in the entire world to put it on the line, because it was personal first. It was going to affect me and my family, and that was a huge deal to me. It was always has been forever and ever. The thing that I think about the most. I've never worried about letting God down. That's not something that I've ever carried. Of like, oh, if I say this out loud that I'm gay, it's gonna let God down. I've, by the grace of God, have never had that fear.
Mhm.
But my fear laid more in letting my family down, letting this ministry down, and letting the church down. Not
Mhm.
God, not Jesus, but the church, the people. Um,
Yeah.
and all of that was true. I did let a lot of people down. I did hurt a lot of people in the process of coming out, right? Like that was something that I recognize, and I feel like I've apologized to the people that I know I hurt the most, or at least have tried to. But I, at the same time, knew that God's grace was going to be sufficient enough for this, and that I don't use this word a lot, but I think that it's true that it was a calling, right, to step into this and to say, okay, I'm going to be a spokesperson for
Yeah.
this community in a lot of ways. I'm going to, Taylor and I both knew that we are in positions of power in all of our settings, and that this was going to be something we were going to have to talk about. And more than likely, we're going to have to be comfortable with people asking questions that, again, no one would ask anyone else. And
Mhm.
yeah, so it just felt really daring personally. And as a ministry, it felt really daring, because I knew we would lose people. I knew how people felt, right? I'm the one that went through all the emails, during the
Mm.
2018-19
Mhm.
conversation. I was the one that got asked all the questions. I really maybe wrongfully shielded my team from that. Um,
Mhm.
I'm the one that had all the conversations about the theologicalness of all of this, and and did my best to make sure that the team was shielded from the conversations because I just needed them to do good work.
Yeah.
And I know that Laura and Taylor and Madeline all had they had to have these conversations. I know that the staff, especially summer of 2019, had to have some really hard conversations because we had churches with very differing views in camp. And
Yeah.
so yeah, 2020, 2021 maybe is like where it felt the most daring
Hmm.
to say, okay, we're going for it and we're going to take
Yeah.
whatever comes. And, a lot of prayer, a lot of thought, a lot of fear went into it, with the best result, right? In that we are now a place that people can belong and that they don't have to question anything. And I think even though there were really hard conversations and hateful conversations that came from it, I think overall it made us a better ministry and it made me a better person. So
Yeah.
I think it's the most daring. There have been plenty of other things along the way, of like saying yes to things that might, maybe I shouldn't have said yes to in the moment or thought through a little bit more, but God has used in really cool ways.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for me, that was a do or die moment. Literally, it felt like.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that also kind of answers the next question, which is, why do you think daring grace stretches us so much? And yeah, I think that based on your experience, it like, being honest about who you are and
Mhm.
being honest about this specific topic is, um, it kind of makes you think about your own convictions, right?
Mhm.
First,
Yeah.
and second of all, it so many people, or that's at least what you feel, right? That so
Mhm.
many people depend on you being truthful about this
Yeah.
specific topic, and
Yeah.
that's why we're so like, that's why like taking a step forward makes you feel so uncomfortable.
Sure.
And yeah.
It stretches us because there's a chance we're wrong in a lot
Yeah.
of things, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, for you and I, we've talked about it so much. Like the context we grew up in, we were told how wrong all of this is. I mean, at every turn. I mean, it was and still is in the context we grew up in. Like not only wrong, but we would call it sin. We would call it sexual immorality. We would call it you name it, right? All of the things, and it was not just taught as something we shouldn't do or be, but it was taught as the worst thing we could do and the worst thing we could be, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, the stretch was having to decide if I believed the people that were teaching those things more than I believed what I knew about Jesus, right? I think that was what I knew about Jesus, right? And again, I'm all for people having their own convictions, but for me, right,
Yeah.
what I knew of Jesus and what I was being told were not they were incongruous, right? It was not something that matched up for me. And
Yeah.
I really knew that from a really young age. I think that's why I never worried about God loving me because I had a really good concept of that God loved me for who I am,
Yeah.
and that's very much due to my mom. Like she was always very very loud. She's the loudest voice in my life for sure, but she was so loud about that God
Yeah.
loves you exactly the way that you are. And so I think that like I never really had to stretch that, but the stretching is knowing you're walking into a firestorm. That's
Yeah.
not just a firestorm about right and wrong, but felt like a firestorm about good and evil, right?
Hmm.
That felt like a firestorm of maybe even physical harm could come my way, right?
Hmm.
I knew that mental harm, right, and emotional harm would come my way. That was without question and doubt. But there's even the fear of like physical harm, and I'm a big person, right? So I like not big like my personality is big, but like my body is a big body, so I'm
Hmm.
very rarely scared of physical hurting. Like it's
Yeah.
not something I like have ever had to think about because I've always been bigger than most people.
Hmm.
But yeah, I knew that this could be something that could cause harm, physical harm. And so yeah, the stretch and all of that is like, is that worth it? Not to just live out truth, right? Because truth I feel like is so remarkably subjective. But is it worth it to yeah, put my whole self on the line for me, for Taylor, but for other people that feel and are the way that we are? Is
Mm-hmm.
it worth that? Ultimately, the answer is yeah, right? And I think that's also true, like outside of this topic, like in this world where we're living in, where ICE is doing what they're doing, and the conversations that we're having around racism, and just the list is long, right? I think having to decide, like, okay, what is my role? What is the position that I'm in? What part can I play to ensure that people don't receive more harm?
Yeah.
And sometimes for me, that's keeping my mouth shut, and for other times, it's being strategic about my relationships and my
Yeah.
using my voice in a certain way. And so all of that is just like, that's the stretching of it, is knowing that there's harm on the other side of it,
Yeah.
but is the harm that's being caused worth the harm that could come to you? And that's a
Mm-hmm.
really hard equation to put together for me, and I think for a lot of people. um when I could just like chill at home and watch Landman, you know what I mean? Like that, I could just like sit at home and do that, or could I lend my voice to ensure people are safe? I think
Yeah.
is really what it comes down to for me.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
How is it important for the church as it evolves,
Mm.
and in general as humans who are experiencing a turmoil of
Yeah,
politics right now and
sure.
ethics? How is it important to like talk about Darren Grace and having Darren Grace, experiencing Darren Grace, and promoting it?
Yeah, right now
And
it's everything, because I think we are so divided. We have all have I was listening to a podcast today, so I'm going to repeat some of it because I think they said it really well, about ethics, right? And as a society, we have agreed. Mm, I don't know. We're in the week that an ICE agent shot down a citizen and multiple citizens this week, so maybe we haven't agreed about murder. Okay, so maybe we're not in agreement, but overall, I think we are in agreement that we should not murder one another. And I think overall we're in agreement that we shouldn't steal from one another. And I think overall we're in agreement. The 10 Commandments we can get behind, right? Love God with all your
yeah,
heart. We got all that. We can agree on that. Love your neighbor. We stop there because love your neighbor as yourself is. I don't think people. I don't think we've gotten behind that. That can be a whole nother day. But in general, we agree that those things are bad. Everything else, we all get to make our decision about what is ethical, right?
yeah,
Is it ethical to eat meat? Some people say yes, some people say no, right?
yeah,
Is it ethical for me to use a plastic bottle to drink out of? Some people say yes, some people say no. And people have very strong arguments on both sides of all of these things. And so if we know that that's reality, right? That like you and I might disagree on like morals and ethics, and me and whoever in the grocery store more than likely disagree on those things. What I think is important right now for the church to be teaching us, and for us as the ministry of Cross Connection to be teaching people, is how do you have conversations with people you disagree with? And how do we not condemn them to hell? I mean, like, that's really what we're doing. We are, in the case of ICE, like the folks that are in support of ICE think that these other people are not worthy of the kingdom of God. I mean, that's
mm-hmm,
as simple as we can say it. It's obvious that we do not think they are worthy of just basic decency,
yeah,
much less to be loved by the Creator, because we think that their bodies are so worthless that we can just shoot them and it's not a big deal, right? Like that is something that we're seeing right now, and for me, I'm like, I cannot get behind that thought process. I can't understand it. It does not make a bit of sense to me. And right now this would just show my lack of diversity in my circle, but in my circle, I don't have anyone that's on Team ICE, right? Like there's no one that I can go talk to and say, help me understand your perspective on this. But what I hope, right? What I hope for the church is that we can offer those conversations. Help me understand why
mm-hmm,
you are so scared of brown people. Just help me
mm-hmm,
understand. And I'm sure it's something deep rooted, right? I'm sure there's some kind of something that I don't agree with, that I think is bonkers, and I think just basically is wrong, right? But they say the same of me, right? Like
yeah,
it is the same conversation. We're just hitting a wall.
Yeah.
The church's job is to help us learn how to have conversation and to
Mm.
invite everyone to the table. Man, that's getting harder.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's the job. That's what I feel like the job of cross connection is, which feels maybe overstating that, but we're giving opportunity, hopefully, for these churches and these students and these adults to sit down with people and across from people that they would never do on their own in a very controlled environment, right?
Yeah.
And to maybe get into a conversation about this and to come out with a different perspective. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if I can come away understanding why someone in my example supports this ICE movement, right? And I can say, man, I disagree with every point you're making, but I at least understand you and where you stand, right? Disagree on the process of it completely, and will radically stand against you in a lot of these things. But I at least understand your perspective. I can at
Hmm.
least stand in your shoes for a few seconds and go, I see how you got here, right?
Hmm.
But in return, right, the hope is that what we're teaching is in return, someone will step in my shoes and see my perspective.
Yeah.
And maybe we come closer in that, right? Maybe
Yeah.
I'm not saying one of us comes to either side, but I'm saying maybe we just have a better understanding. And then the next time we have a conversation with someone that disagrees with us, we can at least see humanity in someone.
Yeah.
That is what I hope, right? That's what I hope for the church. And that feels really Pollyanna. I don't know if that
Hmm.
translates. It feels really like pie in the sky. That's another thing that probably doesn't translate well. Uh, it feels, yeah, naive. That's a good word. It feels really naive, right? It feels really, most people will say that I'm crazy for even taking that journey,
Wait a
right?
minute. Yeah.
That's what's daring about it.
Yeah.
That's what's stretching it.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah, it's bonkers to listen to someone explain why they think this is a good idea, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
but they are equally yelling that I'm bonkers. And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, I think we just gotta learn how to talk to one another.
Yeah.
And that is hard and sometimes harmful and sometimes ends and is not worth it. And but every once in a while I think we do, and we have seen that
Yeah.
it can be cool. It can
Yeah.
be altering. I can worship next to someone who came in thinking that there are no gay Christians in the world, right? And they can stand next to me and hopefully at least come away with a different perspective. And I can stand next to them and understand, because I've walked the journey with so many people that have stood in their shoes, understand where they are,
Yeah.
and not expect them to be where I need them and want them to be. I can give them time, and I think that
Yeah.
that's really the hope. And I hope people give me time, because I have tripped and fallen all over the place. So it's not I'm not the person people are coming to in every topic to, like, as the goal, right? I recognize that there have been a lot of people that have allowed me time to get it together as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it is, you know, Darren Grace is, I see it as providing a space for
Mhm.
to know each other,
Sure.
and it even goes beyond politics, right? Like,
Absolutely.
okay, let's not talk about politics. Let's talk about what brought us here. Let's talk about who we are, how we grew up,
Yeah.
right? Let's talk about our cultures. Let's talk about our family cultures.
Hmm.
Uh, let's talk about our wounds, right?
Sure.
Um, and I like once we've had those conversations, right? And like you said, it is daring because it's not what everybody's doing, right?
Mm-mm.
It's definitely a minority. It's definitely something we're not doing often enough.
Sure.
Um, but once we've had those conversations, everything becomes easier.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for to be part of the cross connection community because I've learned that here, and we experience that every day, right?
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
experience that, of course, during summer. I will never forget, and always get emotional when I tell this story. But I remember going to Haywood Street in Asheville
Mm.
and getting into one of their service for the very first time, And being allowed to be in that space where everybody around me had a very different story than mine.
Hmm.
Everybody around me had different looks, right?
Hmm.
Everybody around me thought in very different ways. I was
Absolutely.
raised to think, right? And just being in that space and feeling the Holy Spirit move through all of us, right? And I think that's what Daring Grace wants to promote, right? Let's just create a space where everyone's holy and everybody has a voice. So,
Hmm.
whew,
Yeah.
you know me, I
And I
always go.
remember after
Yeah,
that service, we talked, right? And I just asked, like, how was it for you? What was your experience? And you said that it was the first time you felt like you went to church.
yeah,
And it's exactly how I felt there,
yeah.
right? It was the first time I had been like, oh, this is what this is. Like, I get it now, right?
Got it, got it, got it.
Yeah, this makes sense. This is what the kingdom of heaven looks like. And
Yeah,
uh yeah, it's a wild thing to experience for the first time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I also remember thinking that, like, okay, got it. This is what church is supposed to be
Hmm.
about.
Yeah.
Everybody is welcome. Uh,
Yes.
everybody's welcome. We were surrounded with people experiencing homelessness. A trans woman was playing the piano,
Hmm.
right? And we were all just so joyful,
Hmm.
and we were all so comfortable with each other
Hmm.
because God was there.
Yeah.
Uh, and I remember thinking, like, how terrible of me to think that, to
Mm.
deem a place inappropriate or to deem a place not worthy of God's presence
Mm.
when He's truly wherever He's invited, right?
That's right. Mm.
So I think coming back to what Daring Grace is I think those are the moments we are allowing ourselves to have once we are, like, we we are invited to
Yeah.
experience Daring Grace, to either
Yeah.
watch it unfold or to either be us who promote a space where Daring Grace is a thing, right?
Yeah, it's just following. I think it's as simple as just following in the footsteps of Jesus, right? Like, he walked into places that he was not allowed to be, and he walked into places and sat down and taught in spaces that would have been a weird thing for him to do. He loved people that everyone told him he shouldn't love. He spent time with people that everybody told him to get away from. He did all of that, right? Like, he is the example of this, and he was the most daring. I think,
Yeah,
it cost him his life.
yeah,
And so I have to, if I'm going to call myself a Christian, I have to make the choice if that's how I'm going to live my life too, right? And
yeah,
I think it's really that simple. I think we do overcomplicate it quite a bit, right?
yeah,
I think he challenged the stereotypes of what was right and wrong all the time, and I think
yeah,
it was very daring of him to eat on the Sabbath and allow his people to pick from the garden and eat on the Sabbath, or from the fields, right? It was very daring of him to sit with women. It was very daring of him to go through Samaria. It was very daring of him to, like, put himself in places that he easily could have lost his life much sooner. But he just was curious about people,
yeah,
and really, if we can just, like, live there for a little bit, in the
yeah,
place of, like, I'm not trying to be a woke Christian, in for me, a woke white Christian in 2026. Like, I have no desire to, like, even figure out what any of that means. All I'm trying to do is, like, read the scripture, understand the gospel, and live like that. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, that's all that matters,
yeah,
right? And some days I'm going to do great at that, and some days I'm going to be terrible, and some days I'm going to be flipping tables, and some days I'm going to be resting, and
hmm,
some days I'm just going to try to live like you lived. That's it.
yeah,
And hope and pray that at the end of all of this, right, whatever the end looks like, that it's a well done moment, and it's just all of these things that I grew up being taught we were supposed to do, right? And so,
yeah,
um, the semantics of it, and the morality of it, and all of that, like, those conversations sometimes get in the way of just like trying to live like Jesus lived. And that's, that's the hope. And that's what I
Yeah.
hope Cross Connection does, is just point people in that direction.
Yeah.
If people choose to follow, awesome. It's been the ride of my life, and the greatest decision I've ever made. And if people don't, then that's their choice, right? Like,
Yeah.
just giving people the opportunity to say yes or no, and not judging them for their choice, because that's not my job,
Yeah.
but just offering them the space to check it out, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for. I don't know who joined who here. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm not going
We
to
knew how
say
this would
thank you
go.
for joining
Yeah.
me.
No, thanks for asking the questions. I think it is important for us to revisit and to, this is evolving. My relationship with God is evolving. My relationship with trust is evolving. My relationship with a lot of things is evolving. In a time that our ministry that we love a lot is in a really hard space, and just like trying to figure out finances and figure out how we move forward, and what does that look like, and how should we move forward? What's the responsible way to move forward? Like, there's so many questions we're living in right now that are sometimes very, very depressing. So I'm grateful for you saying that let's have this conversation, because it reminds me of what we're doing here. Because a lot of
Yeah.
times I can get bogged down in the numbers, and the reality of it is like those matter because we have to be able to like do the ministry.
Yeah.
But what matters more is just loving the people. And so yeah, I'm grateful for the conversation and grateful for you, because you
Yeah.
have helped me be able to articulate better what I think, right? I think that's been really helpful for me, is like the more questions I get asked, the better I can answer them. And so it's good for me. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also want to thank you because, you fought for me to be here. And
100%. I will
that's
continue always.
one of the biggest honors of my life. So,
Yeah. No.
yeah.
Yeah. Your friendship, your partnership in this ministry is I don't tell you enough, just like, you're the glue that holds us together. I think you know that, and I think it's a lot of pressure. But the way you love all of us is so important to this thing that we're doing. And so, yeah, I fight for you just because you're you, but then your skill set's pretty great too. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's good. But yeah, I'll wrap this thing up. How about that?
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for joining a conversation with me and Juanfer today about what Daring Grace is and what we're hopeful for. If this is something that you love or that you believe in, or you have questions, I hope that you'll reach out to us. I also hope that you'll share this episode with people, just to like get them on the team, on the journey with us, because it is a journey. We are still learning and growing and evolving, and this ministry of Cross Connection, like I said just a few seconds ago, is in a really hard place. And so we're reimagining so many things currently, and so there will be more stories to tell, and we are both confident, and I think all of us are confident, that there'll be more stories to tell of the goodness of God. And so we invite you to listen in and be a part of the conversation. Subscribe if you're on Apple or Spotify or YouTube. It helps us be able to get the word out, and we are just really grateful. And then also, if this is a ministry that you feel confident in, and you want to support, you can do that at crossconnection.org/donate. And your donation supports this work as well. So we're grateful to be in ministry with you. We hope that you will always stay curious, that you will always be a part of a good community that challenges you, that doesn't just allow you to believe all the same things and be all the same, but like really sharpens you. And I hope that you'll find someone to serve today. Thanks for being a part of this community.
Bye.
Bye. Cool.